I've got 3 o'clock. Are we ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Engineering and Equipment Committee of the Vallecitos Water District for Monday, May 10th, 2021 at 3 p.m. via teleconference. I'm going to go ahead and read this paragraph related to COVID-19. Due to the evolving situation of the COVID-19 novel coronavirus, so long as state or local public health officials have imposed or recommended social distancing measures, Vallecitos Water District will hold future meetings via teleconferencing and allow members of the public to observe and address the meeting telephonically or otherwise electronically. During this period of time, Vallecitos Water District will not be making any physical location available for members of the public to observe the meeting and offer public comment. The public is encouraged to watch and participate in the meeting from the safety of their homes. The meeting can be viewed on the agenda page located on the main page of the district's website. Public comments or questions can be submitted to the following email address, publiccomment@vwd.org. All written comments that are received at least 90 minutes before the meeting will be provided to the committee members, and a record of the receipt of comment will be noted during the meeting. Members of the public viewing the meeting via the Zoom video conferencing platform can express their desire to provide input at the appropriate time by utilizing the raise hand function. Additional instructions for online participation will be posted on the district website, www.vwd.org/meetings. Okay, and with that, I'll turn over the agenda to General Manager Pruitt.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Eltharp. So we have a busy agenda today, not quite as busy as the last meeting. We have a few guest appearances, and we have one project that's a kind of interesting. Like I think there were 3 on the last meeting where there were some really interesting issues associated. We have one of those today. So we're going to start out with a update on the San Marcos Interceptor and about a change order that needs to take place there. So I might turn that over to Ryan or James.
Yeah, I think Ryan will take this one.
All right, go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, thank you, General Manager Brougham, and good afternoon. Should I go ahead and share my screen of the agenda, you think, James?
There's several items. Go ahead and share yours, and then I'll take over when you're done.
Okay. Okay, you should see the first page of the staff report now. So, as everyone's been well aware, the San Marcos Interceptor Phase 2 construction has been ongoing now for about a year's time, about 9 months now. We're rounding the corner and really coming into the home stretch as far as getting off San Marcos Boulevard and finishing the work in the creek. As the board of directors is aware, we had some additional services that were related to some delays and design changes in San Marcos Boulevard, which essentially required additional scope for our construction manager at the time. So we've already taken that item to the board for their amendment number 1 for Valley CM. This change order number 2 item is going to go before the board after this meeting. Basically because we have exceeded the 5% contingency per ordinance 146 on this project. It's a large contract amount. It's $6.3 million original contract amount. Change order 1 was in the range for the redesign work on San Marcos Boulevard, the tunnel realignment change, and everything that was associated with those items from the last time. That change order totaled $310,916, which fell under the I'm sorry, I think I got my numbers wrong there. It was just about $260,000. That fell under the 5% contingency. Staff authorized that back in January, and we continued on with the project. Working in San Marcos Boulevard was a bit of a challenge due to the soils in the boulevard, traffic control. We performed night work on San Marcos Boulevard to mitigate some of the traffic-related conflicts during the day and public outreach and things like that. But one thing in specific was encountered in San Marcos Boulevard with the groundwater and porous soils. It was noticed in the pictures that you'll find on your screen here. There was a seam that opened up in the roadway, a crack developed where there wasn't a crack before, or it was crack sealed in the pre-construction video. And this crack migrated longitudinally down San Marcos Boulevard from Tamarisk to Pacific Street. And basically what we think it was the joint in the road where the road was widened back with the past city improvement project. So there was a distinct change in material and subgrade material in the roadway at this location. And it just created a bit of a problem in the excavation of collapsing of the trench wall. Typically speaking, contractor is able to shore up the trench wall and preserve it to the limits that they require to open up for the sewer installation. In this case, the entire travel lane of the number 2 lane in San Marcos Boulevard eastbound was opened, unfortunately. And the contractor attempted to use different means and methods to hold up the wall to prevent collapse. They were unsuccessful. This was at night, so it slowed down the progress of work. Ultimately, part of the reason why it took them so long to work in San Marcos Boulevard. As a result of this, it resulted in additional backfill, additional excavation, and additional AC pavement required on the project. So for putting this staff report together, we hadn't gotten the final numbers of change order 2 figured out yet. So what we put in the staff report is an estimate. I can report today that the good news is it's going to be less than what we reported on. But this particular change order revolves around the surface restoration and the additional earthwork, excavation, and backfill in San Marcos Boulevard that exceeded our bid quantity. That being said, we were looking at change order 2 in the rough ballpark of $136,000, which would take the total contract change order amount to 6.2% to date. I can report today that we're looking at about the actual change order 2 value will be about $88,000, which takes it to a total of 5.5%. So we're still going to exceed that 5% contingency. We're still going to need board intervention here or approval for this at 88,000. Some of the additional extra work, and I should say that the 88,000 constitutes 4 or 5 different line items that are additional, including the AC pavement, which is the biggest, and backfill and excavation as well. We do expect an additional change order number 3 to come in still in the coming months, because there was additional concrete removals and some manhole rehabilitation work, which we're still finalizing pricing on and making a decision whether or not we're going to proceed with the work. But any amount of change at this point is going to exceed the 5% per the ordinance. So so to finish out the job, which we still expect to finish out the job at the beginning of July, there may be a third change order coming to the board again in June. And I just kind of wanted to set the table on that to be fully transparent. And given the nature of this change order around the surface restoration and paving extras, the contractor will be seeking to get paid on these items this month. So that's why we're taking them in separate waves, I guess you could say. So as I mentioned, the fiscal impact is actually broken out a little bit differently. Change order 2, instead of $136,000, will be $88,000, or just thereabout. We're still within budget. We still expect to finish within budget, what's been budgeted. So we are not requesting any kind of additional allocation to the budget at this time. That will be flushed out in full once we know more about change order 3 and what's coming to close out the project. So with that, we will be seeking engineering and equipment committee support for this item to go to the board of directors on what will be May 19th board meeting for the authorization of change order number 2 in the amount of roughly $88,000. And if there's any questions or discussion, I'd be happy to address that now.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Director Hernandez, any questions?
You're on mute, Director Hernandez.
I'm still a little confused. Ryan said it was 88,000. I got 136,000. Is that differential somewhere?
No, when we were putting the agenda together, the estimate was 136,000. But we were still in negotiation and we we're still verifying quantities with the contractor, but we didn't have it as of Thursday. So we knew we'd be working on Friday, maybe even on Saturday, to get the real number. And the number came in lower once we verified, checking our notes, checking our inspector's notes. Some of it was, already in the scope for them to do. At the end of the day, it was less than we thought, but we put the worst case number up there because that's the only number we had on Thursday.
You're going to modify the report for our board meeting.
Yeah, it'll be captured correctly in the minutes of this meeting, and then for the board meeting, we'll put the correct amount.
Very good. Thank you. That's all I needed.
All right. We certainly have my support for this change order. I've found with large pipeline projects, the most challenging part's always been the street restoration. So I think this is commendable. You've held the change order amount in the 5 to 6% range. So you've got my support, and I'll defer to Director Hernandez for his support.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Really
Ryan.
And I would just like to add that we know one of the best things we can do to leave behind is a nice roadway on San Marcos Boulevard. It's very heavily trafficked. That's one area we didn't want to cut any corners in. We actually took some areas that were damaged, not from our project, but we negotiated with the city because they kind of wanted us to go ahead and make that repair now, and we agreed. So the goal was really to leave the boulevard a better place than we found it when we started.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and even though the finished paving isn't done, it was nice to get that extra eastbound lane opened up on Friday.
Yep. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
We ready for item number 2?
Yep.
Yeah, Ryan, you might as well keep this up, or do you want me to share it? Yep, you might as well keep this up and scroll right past that a little bit.
Yeah, so this item is the Las Posas water line replacement project. And I think this is the first water main break that we had when I started back in late 2016. I don't remember the exact date for this one. It was probably November or December of 2016, something like that. And now we're getting around to making final repairs here.
Is this the one where the cable company skewered the pipeline?
No, that is not. This one actually, it was a pipeline break at the trapezoidal section right there, right when General Manager Prum started actually.
Okay.
And this is the one where we had to get our crews. And it was so deep, and we didn't have the equipment. We actually had to widen the road and bench our equipment in down below the road surface to even get down to it. So we put a quick repair in. I'm stealing most of Ryan's thunder here, so I'll stop. But we put a quick repair in just to get us by, and then we're going to schedule for a full repair later on. And then with budgets and then COVID, we just kind of pushed that project back. But you'll see from the pictures, we'll probably have to get to it because it's kind of a ticking time bomb. Sorry about that, Ryan. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate the warm up. It's basically, as James said, in 2016, this water line broke. It's a 10 or a 12-inch ductile iron pipeline. It runs under this culvert, which in plan is shown in yellow. It crosses it here where the blue line crosses the yellow rectangle. And the location of the break is in the roadway right at the vertical 45 as it comes out from underneath the culvert. Our own construction crews went in there to repair this line, and at the time they had difficulty reaching with our equipment excavating below the pipe invert. So conditions were not ideal. There was groundwater, soils were sloughing off, and started to actually undermine the culvert a little bit in the repair. So crews did what they could to repair it as best they could. We considered it a temporary repair. It has held up ever since, but that being said, it's been budgeted for in CIP to go in and do a proper repair, and at the same time we'll also look at relining or slip lining the pipeline that goes underneath the culvert, so that if the ductile iron is in bad shape, we will not only fix the repair location, but the rest of the line where it's deep should hold up in the future and shouldn't be a problem, so that if it does break again, it'll be at a shallower depth, one where crews would have an easier time to reach and repair.
This is one of those cases where it's the consequence of failure underneath this big culvert would cost the district hundreds of thousands of dollars. We know that we had a failure. Luckily, it was not underneath the culvert. We know that during the repair, the ductile iron was not in the best condition that they clamped onto. So the likelihood of failure is probable. When, we don't know, but it's definitely something that we're not 100% sure, but it's buttoned up. But the consequence would be extremely expensive if we undermined and destroyed that box culvert. We'd have to get Cass out here, and they'd be out here for weeks fixing it.
So here's some pictures of the repair, Las Posas waterline repair with the clamps James was mentioning. And this one here actually shows the culvert and how it was beginning to be undermined here. And the ductile iron, which in my understanding is not in the best shape. So that being said, we've actually already drafted a RFP, and we've invited 2 consultants on our as needed civil engineering rotation list, as needed list. We have requested letter proposals for them for the design and professional engineering services for design and bid phase services. We expect to receive those proposals at the end of May, and depending on the fee associated with those proposals on whomever we select, this item may be coming to the board in June, probably by June 16th board meeting, seeking an award for that PSA or that task order.
And this is just an informational item for the committee of what we have, probably the next engineering design award that we have going to the board. So this way the committee is aware and also can ask questions.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Director Hernandez.
Would you, this Palos Vista Drive, where is that at?
Yeah, that's a typo. We actually fixed it, and I believe the wrong one ended up getting posted. It's supposed to be Las Posas. That's Las Posas, and that's Las Posas. in Linda Vista. That the building that's
Okay.
by itself is a Granger.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. No,
so James,
I thought that was the case, but yeah.
Sorry, Director Elthorpe.
yeah, so I was thinking of another uh, break that, wasn't there a issue with somebody boring underneath in the same area?
Yeah, this was a little
That was,
closer.
maybe it was a sewer line.
No, it was a sewer line, but it was a little closer to the movie theater. The dry utility contractor bored right through our water line and
Yeah.
our sewer line, but they end up paying. We end up getting a contract out there, and they end up paying 100% of that fix.
Gotcha. That's the one I was thinking there was, this was that one.
That was just down the road, just a little further to the south.
Gotcha.
So unless there's any questions, we can move on to the next item. Ryan, will you stop sharing your screen?
Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah, so the next item is an overview of our GIS system. It's obviously an essential component of our asset management program. So I think Susan's going to kick us off, and then she's going to maybe turn it over to Paula Cosmano. So Susan, why don't you jump in?
Great. Thank you, General Manager Prum and directors. Yeah, we are here today to give you a little overview of the GIS system. It's a critical component to the district's ability to understand the assets that we have and where they're located. Joining me today are our two GIS technicians, Paul Cosmano and Dan Lopez. They're going to be giving you the demo after I run through this PowerPoint real quick. So Paul, if you want to go ahead and share your screen. Okay, so GIS, it stands for Geographic Information. I can't talk that fast. Okay. Geographic Information System. And what it is, what we're going to be talking about today, the agenda will be giving you a definition of what GIS is. I'm going to tell you about how it plays a role in our overall asset management efforts here at the district. We're going to just touch on a couple of the areas where the district is using the GIS system. Just give you a quick little preview so that as we go into the demo, you have a little bit of framework for where this system supports all of our efforts. And then I'm going to also give you a little bit of info on the future efforts for GIS, where we're headed with this system and how it fits in with some of our other systems at the district. So Paul, go ahead. So that's our agenda for today. So go on to the GIS. What is GIS? Slide. Next slide, Paul. Thank you. Geographic Information System. This is a definition that was pulled from the Esri Corporation. They are really one of the premium and initial groups that started building GIS. GIS stands for Geographic Information System, but everybody just says GIS. And it's a way to gather, manage, and analyze data, but really this data is all based in geography. So there's a lot of different information that we're going to show you that's contained within the GIS system, but really it's all about spatial location, using maps, 3D, et cetera. You know, as you're nowadays, everybody has maps on their phones with Google and all the other tools, but the foundation of all of that map is based out of just the GIS concepts and the discipline of GIS, which again, Esri is really the backbone of a lot of that technology and information that we just use every day in our everyday lives. So again, GIS, it just gives us better insights into the data here at the district, you know, is a better way to see our assets and understand where they're at. So it's really just a critical component to being able to provide our services to the customers. So next slide. Okay, so where does it fit into the overall asset management concepts? This is a slide that I've used now to sort of bring together what asset management is and what the different components are of asset management. And this GIS system really is part of these first two components of what asset management is. What do we own? You know, what are our assets? As we were just talking about in the previous presentations, we need to know what we have, and we do need to know where it's located. Majority of our work is field work. It's on the water and sewer lines, not within fence lines, although within fence lines of a treatment plant like MRF, we do have GIS, but primarily GIS being a map-based system, it tells us where all of our assets are located very precisely and how they're related to each other in how the system flows, collecting water, delivering water. Next slide. Okay, so again, at the district, we have something, the base maps that we use, the primary maps that we use are water and sewer atlas maps. That's just the term that we refer to them. Paul and Dan will be giving you a little glimpse of those. And then we have other applications that are targeted towards specific aspects of our business. Meter reading map. Paul's going to show you what we're doing with the meter reading. The division map where we show where the different directors have coverage of their districts. We have main break layer that's been put in place to help understand where main breaks are. We have applications that help our maintenance crews execute the maintenance and keep track of what they've done, where they've done work. Some of these pictures here, these are things that you'll recognize from on the yellow pins there are from the soil analysis work we're doing down in San Elijo Hills. And on the left there in the purple colors are where we had done some risk analysis of our ductile iron pipe that we were just talking about, risk analysis of the different areas around the district so that we can focus our efforts, condition assessment efforts there. But again, these are things that are used throughout the district. Everyone needs it to accomplish whatever aspect of their assignment that they have going on. So next slide. Okay, so future efforts. What we are looking to do is to expand the accessibility to the GIS system through mobile access and integration with Maximo, our maintenance management system. So currently we have our assets in the GIS, and then the assets are also recorded in our Maximo maintenance management system. This next year, we're going to be identifying the core needs to integrate those two systems together so that an asset in GIS is updated on a nightly basis to the assets and the maintenance history in the maintenance management system. So that's a big effort that we'll be undertaking. And with that as well, it'll allow us to get GIS out in the field to all of our field workers. Currently, supervisors and certain other groups that are very heavily GIS based do have GIS access in the field, but moving forward, we'll be giving that out to everyone and on multiple devices so that they are able to really track their work and understand where our assets are located. So next slide will be our demo. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Paul and Dan. Paul's going to show you some of the tools that we have on the water side, and then Dan will wrap up with some of the applications on the sewer side.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Everyone can see the district site
Yes.
map. Okay, this is a portion of our water atlas map. And what we do is we're showing all our facilities, both in the office and out in the field. Every appurtenance in the system, pipe, whether it be pipe, valve, meter, whatever, has data associated with it. And as you can see in this pop-up, this is the data that's associated with the water main that I clicked on. We do have links to the as-built, which can only be accessed indoors at present, but we're working on getting those accessed mobily. So all the information in this map, whether it's a fire hydrant or a meter, it all has data associated with it, and we can click on it and quickly find it. Also, too, we do have the main breaks layer that we just added. And it shows it's fairly recent, with the exception of the one we had the other day. And also has that information. As soon as it shows up here, we'll click on one. And it'll have the lat long information, where the main break was located. You can see here. The cause, main break, lat long locations, the pipe material, and even the soil type. So that's pretty basic. We have quite a few layers. Only some of them are turned on. We have access to quite a bit of information that the end users can use. The other map we have, this map is internal only. So only district employees can see this map, no public access. This next map, the division map, can also be seen by the public. And when they go to the district's website to open it up, they'll get this splash screen. It'll show them the instructions on what to do and how to find their board member. Basically, you go up here, you'll type in your address. Boulevard. It'll zoom you to the location. You just click on the screen, and it'll tell you the precinct that they're in and division number and the board member's name. And again, this is a public-facing map. One of the other maps we have is the new map we just put out about a week ago. It is accessible to the public now. This is for finding, I guess, quite a few residents are asking when their meters are getting read. So we created this in conjunction with the meters department so that anyone can find when their meter is going to be read at any time during the year. Again, same situation. Type in your address. You zoom you to the location, just click on the screen and it'll tell you what your cycle number is. And then the instructions on the front splash screen will tell you to go up here once you find that. And then match it up with the read cycle here, and you can find out when your meter is going to be read anytime during the year 2021. And let's see. And that's all I have. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Dan, and he will show you some of the other maps that we have.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to quickly talk about a few other web maps that we have. They're available to district staff only. And these are typically on a desktop, but they're also available to on a mobile device. And I'll talk about that in a minute here. What you're looking at is very similar to what Paul just described in the water atlas. So they're very similar, except now you're looking at sewer mains. If you're familiar with the area, you'll notice that that's the district sewer mains that front the district office, and then the surrounding areas as well. If you'll notice the sewer mains and then the manholes are labeled for reference. If you click on a sewer main as such, then you'll get all the pertinences that are associated with that sewer main, upstream, downstream, elevation, invert, diameter, length, things of that nature. So it really gives everything, all the information to the end user, including a link to the as-built itself. And so there's the information for the sewer main. If you were to click onto a manhole, you would get the similar information, all related, of course, per the attribute associated with the manhole. So you know that if it's size of the manhole, things of that nature itself. You'll notice the symbology there with a circle with an S right there. That is that indicates that is a sewer. So district staff, in particular with development services, they use the water and sewer atlases maps on a regular basis to answer any questions that the public, contractors, and developers may have. So when you click on that, it tells the end user that they have sewer, EDUs, and things of that nature. And so it pretty much displays our infrastructure for the sewer just as the water does. So that's it for the sewer map in a nutshell. Let's go to the vector cleaning map. Vector cleaning application map, simply, it's a mobile application that's used out in the field by the collections department. This particular map is used for vector cleaning tracking, if you will. You'll notice the two different types of colors on the screen, where you'll see the sewer mains that are green, and then there's some red ones. The green ones, for the purpose of the vector crew, indicate that this sewer main has not been cleaned. So once they vector clean it, then it will change colors, as you see here. You click on that and it displays all the different attributes regarding that sewer main. When it was that it was cleaned, the date that it was cleaned, operator, truck number, things of that nature, things that they use for tracking purposes that they have to keep track of. And this is part of their yearly routine of cleaning the district sewer mains itself.
So Dan,
Yes,
so it resets every year. So those green pipes may have been cleaned a year ago, but then it resets
correct.
every year. Okay.
Correct. So what happens is that after the district infrastructure is divided into 16 areas. So the vector trucks are divided by cleaning certain areas throughout the year. And then once they're clean, GIS does is that once they're ready for us to archive that information, what we'll do is download that information, save it to the GIS, and then have it available for the end user, either at their desktop or at on their mobile device, to see, to look back at the records of when it was cleaned and all that. If we get a customer complaint or there's some other matter of that. And we're going to go to another map, which is similar to the vector cleaning map, except this is for the camera crew. It's a CCTV application, and this is again in the collections department, but this is for the camera crew is what they do. So what we've done here, the green specifies all the typical information that you get on the sewer atlas. This one, obviously, because it's green, it still stays green, and it has not been cameraed. Now, if you were to click on once that sewer main is cameraed, then you will get the additional information, including when the sewer main was cameraed, and then when it was edited, who the operator was, the footage, and things of that nature. And in the near future, users will be able to link to the actual video of that sewer main. And again, this is for tracking purposes, so it helps them track what's been cameraed. And then the district archives those videos, and we're in process of having those videos available to the end user, primarily for the collections department there. So that's pretty much in a nutshell on that one.
Yeah, that's it.
So with that, I think I'll just turn it over to Susan.
Well, thank you both, Dan and Paul. That was great to see what we're doing with this and how it helps our crews and the public to understand the information about the work that we do here. So thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I do. Susan, I didn't see the first page. Is there a legend of what the symbols mean so the public can go and see a round circle is a manhole, one with a cross through it is something else?
So the public doesn't have access to the one screen that has all of our appurtenances and all of our assets. There's Paul, they do have some access to that information from the.
Yeah, on the public facing maps, there's a
Mhm.
legend on the left-hand side of the screen that tells you what the colors and the lines are.
Okay.
And they're very basic for
All right.
the customers.
I
Yep.
figured as much. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thanks, Susan, Paul, and Dan. Very informative. I can tell you from experience that having access for the field crews of the as-built is extremely valuable and helpful. So that'll be a great feature.
Yep.
Currently, we download the as-built onto their mobile device, but it's not live. As this is all part of that integration that the committee has seen how we're moving asset management along and bringing that computer maintenance out to the field. GIS is an integral part of it, and as the guys already stated, they'll be able to click right on it and be able to see the CCTV or be able to see the pertinent information. It should make workflow and gathering information, accurate information, a lot easier for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that relationship between the field personnel and the engineering group is important too, because obviously the system's only as good as the information you have. So getting that feedback from the field crews that says, hey, this isn't the right manhole size that you said, or it's a different pipe material. So that constant feedback loop is really important. And the data, not just for planning work, but for regulatory compliance purposes is really important. You know, if you look on the wastewater side, we have the SSMP, the Sanitary Sewer Management Plan. And that's where you're telling the regional board what you're going to be doing with your system to maintain it, to prevent spills. And GIS and the CMMS is an integral tool of that. So we know immediately what we've cleaned, what we haven't, how often what we found while we've been cleaning it. So great tools. And I want to apologize, Dan, I didn't acknowledge you before. I didn't know you're going to be contributing, but thank you for joining us. I do appreciate it. And for the committee members who may not know, Dan just recently got married, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
A couple weekends ago.
Thank
so.
you. Thank you. I'm still in the honeymoon phase right now.
What better place to spend it than
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, at least we're all back in the office, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so we'll let Paul and Dan and Susan depart if they'd like to. And the fourth item is the one I was referring to earlier, where it's a bit of an interesting dilemma or project we have in front of us. So I'm going to let James lead the conversation, but we'd love to hear the committee members' feedback on this one. So James, why don't you jump in there?
Absolutely. I always get the fun ones, I guess, huh?
Yep.
Okay. So this project is called Sunrise Orcs. Can everybody see the figure?
Yeah.
So it's Sunrise Orcs. It's off of Barham here in Mission, and then the Freeway 78's right here. So it's the freeway entrance off Barham is where my arrow is right now, and it's right at the edge of our district. So this is Escondido here in the blank white, and then this area is hatched because it's a sewer only area. It's a service water by Rincon del Diablo, and we serve sewer. Just kind of, I'm going to flip back and forth, but to go to the Google Maps, this is the same area on Google. This is the mobile home park that's off of Barham. This is the long driveway, and this is Sunrise Org. They actually own both parcels, but their development is right here. The skinny parcel here is within city of San Marcos. This larger parcel is within the county, and this parcel is within the city of Escondido. So it is a really kind of a hodgepodge of different jurisdictions that they're dealing with. Because of that, there's a lot of complication. It's not an easy site. There's probably a reason why it's not an easy site. They're at the end of our system. Our existing sewer is right here that collects from this basically mobile home park and then comes across the freeway. It's an 8-inch and it's adequate. It could even handle the additional flows. And I forgot how many units they're building, 184, but they're apartments, so they're not single family homes. But the number's up there somewhere. And basically, we're conditioning them right now to build an 860-foot sewer. They've approached us because there's a sewer in, this is Myers over here in the industrial complex. I'm going to flip back and forth again. So this is the industrial complex in Escondido right here. Palomar, the new hospital is just off screen here. And of course, Stone is a little bit off screen of that. And they could actually sewer to Escondido. Now, they can't sewer without, because they don't have the jurisdiction. They'd be our customer. Escondido has conditions. Some of those conditions, Vallecitos doesn't necessarily agree with. So we're not out of the question with Escondido, but there is some issues. Escondido wants cap fees. I can understand why. We'd want our cap fees. The developer doesn't want to pay both sides of the cap fees. So we're trying to find some creative ways. Obviously, sewering here across a property that they control is a lot easier. And this is not a main road. Building 860 feet of sewer in Barham is more complicated. And when we asked them to do an analysis, it's roughly $500,000. The numbers that we're really talking about here, just to give a perspective, is there's about $2 million in sewer cap fees that we're talking about. Escondido's cap fees are about $1.2 million. So there is definitely an incentive for them to come into Vallecitos to collect $2 million. If they sewer to Escondido, Escondido wants Vallecitos to pay the $1.2 million of their cap fees. So we'd only collect about $800,000. These are round numbers, not exact. What's going on in this area is this is within Vallecitos, and this line here is within Escondido. So going back to the Google map in that area. So this is Bennett Court, and this area is within Escondido. And just to zoom up on it here a little bit, I just found out looking at our GIS system today that these properties right here actually sewer to a manhole that's right here at the freeway entrance. But these properties do not. And these properties, which are not in Escondido, I'm sorry, not in Vallecitos, but in Escondido's jurisdiction, do not sewer. They must be on septic. I verified with Escondido, they don't have a sewer. But Escondido also doesn't have a way to service. So if they were to ever redevelop and this is the auto auction place, you can see from all the cars, perhaps. Escondido did not commit to this, but they said that most likely if they came in, they may be looking to sewer towards us because they can't get into Escondido sewer, and Escondido doesn't want another pump station in the area. That being said, Escondido has this as apartments or maybe industrial. So there can be a lot of sewer if it's the right type of industrial or apartments. One of the things that was floated out talking with development, and we're kind of here discussing with the board today, is can we, as Vallecitos, figure out a way to make this project work and make it a win-win, a win for Vallecitos, and it won't be a full win for the development, but at least it won't be as much of a hammer. So we're looking at roughly $2 million in cap fees for the sewer side, which is beneficial for us. We're looking at a sewer line that needs to be built here. There's a potential between existing customers and the light industrial. The problem that we have with the industrial is from an average light industrial, we have plenty of sewer capacity within the 8-inch pipe. However, you never know what you're going to get, if it's going to be an apartment complex or a larger industrial, still light industrial, but let's say a high water and sewer intensive industrial. Breweries are one of them, but the other one is like carpet dyers. They use a lot of water and they dump a lot of water into the sewer. Then the 8-inch wouldn't make sense. These septic systems, looking at them, they're going to fail sooner or later. They haven't been replaced. They're still the original. They'll fail within the lifetime of this pipeline. It may behoove us to actually look at increasing that pipe size and doing some type of payback agreement with the developer to put a 10-inch line in. This way, we don't have to dig up this road again. Understanding that we would still either collect money or condition that these new developments in the future to increase the pipeline going across the street. Let me go back to the graphic. So basically this is all 8, and then we have a larger pipeline on this side. So it'd be an increase to bring it over here. So there's still a significant amount. But if these guys came in with an 8, and then we had some development here, making them upsize to 10 all the way across, those developments wouldn't be large enough to be able to accommodate that within their development footprint and be still developable. So we're trying to find a reasonable solution. And this is more of a discussion with the committee on your thoughts. The amount of sewer coming in here is not that great. However, since all the sewer is kind of residential, it all comes at the same time. So the sewer sizing is adequate the way we have it. Obviously, different uses and different type of uses would increase that. So it can be pushed to a 10, but we don't have that yet. What we're looking at is, I mean, the developer would love it if we basically paid for this pipe, and we told them no. But what we're looking at is it possible to look at a creative solution that works for this development and still works for Vallecitos? I'm going to stop here right now, Glenn. I don't know if you want to add anything additional, and then we can have a discussion, and maybe I could continue after that.
No, I think just to stop and check and see if the committee members get the lay of the land and understand the issue before we start talking about potential solutions.
Yeah, I've got an idea. How about if we tell Escondido we'll service this industrial area along the freeway, in exchange they'll take the Montiel Road and we can get rid of that lift station over there?
Yeah, we did a full couple $100,000 study. The problem Escondido has is the sewer that it goes into needs to be upgraded for, like, I forgot how many thousands of feet.
Yeah, I know it's a long ways, but
Yeah.
maybe we can package some bigger deal with Escondido and try to, do what's best for these fringe areas.
And we definitely looked at that before. Escondido is not interested in the Montiel sewer flows because of the volume with the potential growth area. Because we have a development plan for a hotel and another development plan for a subdivision that's going in there. It's not a big subdivision; it's a minor, or maybe it's a 15 lot or 9 lot. It's a 9 lot. But even with that, it's some of them are single families, and the hotel itself has a tremendous amount of flow that it could potentially give. And it's an area in their system. They don't model their systems fully. So it's an area system that they don't really understand where their deficits are. So they have a small pump station located in this area. That's not that old. But it was sized for just this industrial park, or this it's a little bit more than this industrial park. So they really don't have the ability to upsize it much, according to them.
I'm shocked that those industrial parcels are still on septic. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, my understanding is this last triangle parcel has an extractor pump and is able to get into the system, but these do not, and neither do these. These three, well, one of these parcels is vacant, but these 3 parcels, or 2 parcels, definitely do, and these do not.
There's actually a couple of homes there on a couple of those parcels.
Yeah, there are actually. So.
Okay, well,
So
I'm just trying to figure out a way to get rid of that Montiel Road lift station. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, we went down a whole negotiation with Escondido, and it became with Jason Hubbard, when he was still here, was in charge of that project, and we sat down with the Escondido staff, and at the end of the day, unless we were willing to upgrade their whole sewer system almost all the way to Harf, their treatment plant, they weren't willing to really listen to us. We talked about maybe contributing for an upsizing of their system, and it was basically a hard no. And from our ratepayer standpoint, it doesn't make sense to upgrade their system for that. But that being said, one of the hurdles that we ran into with allowing this development to sewer into Escondido is they're still our customers. They're not going to annex into Escondido. That's a no-go. And Escondido, their sewer charges right now aren't higher than ours, but in the future they may be. So Escondido wants the right to charge whatever they want to charge. And these people wouldn't have a Prop 218 notice from Escondido because they're not their customers. So Vallecitos would have to pay the difference. So that'd put our, so looking at that, that wasn't advantageous. There was a couple other, issues with Seward to Escondido from a logistics standpoint. Now, if we had a mutual treatment plant and this was just an exchange, there wouldn't be an issue. We do that with Buena, we do that with Vista, we do that with Carlsbad. But in this case, it's not an exchange because we don't have a mutually owned facility.
Yeah, I
Director
guess,
Hernandez, did you have any questions about the kind of the lay of the land, or are you good?
No, I know where the project is. They've contacted me about the situation here. I'm just wanting to hear the rest of the story.
Okay, so James mentioned that there's several alternatives we looked at, and one of them is this kind of I wouldn't call it a partnership, but it's a way for the district to be to work with the developer to help provide service in the future to properties that haven't developed yet. So James, why don't you kind of explain maybe what we're proposing there, not what we're proposing, but what we've discussed with the developer.
Yeah, and this is really preliminary, and this would require a board authorization and action. So our typical payback agreement or our typical upsizing agreement is for district needs. So in other words, if the development needs an 8-inch pipeline, they need to put an 8-inch pipeline. But if we need a 10-inch pipeline, then the district pays for that difference. In this case, with this industrial area that may or may not develop in the future, and the fact that this is really a narrow road and it's got some unique elements to it, including a freeway entrance where really no freeway entrance should be, according to modern standards at least. It'd be very difficult to put in a secondary pipe. There's no corridor for a secondary pipe because you couldn't remove this 8-inch without putting in a high line. And if you guys have traveled down that road, it's not a wide corridor. So not that it's not impossible. It just makes it very cost prohibitive to try and put a parallel line in, which you probably couldn't do because there's just no corridor. And then so putting a bypass system in and putting a pipeline in its place is possible, but very costly. So when we looked at the type of industrial uses and talked to Escondido a little bit, and literally I talked to them Friday afternoon. So this was a very quick conversation. And when I talked to them, they're really anticipating this area to redevelop in the future. Since it's freeway close, it's going to be either industrial, or if it's residential, it's going to be apartment complexes. I couldn't get what City of San Marcos plans are for it, but looking at their zoning map, it's a light industrial for them. And there's no indication of what that means. Now, if it's a light industrial where it's just a warehouse, we don't need a 10-inch line and everything's going to be right. But if it's a light industrial that actually manufactures something that utilizes water, and that therein lies the problem. The installation of a 10-inch line there would be, not only would it be doable, it would add some additional costs that the district could reimburse the development, and it'd give us a little bit of a hedge against future development, so we could accommodate it without ripping up the road again and doing this twice, so to speak. Now, it may or may not happen. As far as maintenance and liability, there's really no additional for us between an 8-inch and a 10-inch. We're still going to camera it. We're still going to clean it, and our standard equipment still works in it. The larger pipes above 12-inch, it's a different equipment. We use different tools in, but 8s and 10s, I don't know about the 12s, but 8s and 10s for sure, we use the same exact equipment. So from a district standpoint, it doesn't add any burden. So this may be a case where it's a win-win. We're still not looking at a full reimbursement. We haven't talked dollars yet with the developer. We're just talking ideas at this point. And what we promised, or what we conveyed to the developer, is we'd bring it to committee, spitball one of these ideas, and see if it sticks, or see if the committee wants to look at a different idea. This is more of a roll up your sleeves and kind of get into a conversation, because there's no easy solution. The pipeline itself, without help, is something that the development may or may not be able to overcome as far as cost. the common sense thing, and this is where obviously the developer, and to make his argument is, hey, I could sue a right to hear if you just let me. And on the surface, there's no real issue with that, but the district does lose out on $1.2 million of cap fees, and we have to sign an agreement that puts the district and its future ratepayers liable for additional costs. And so there's no reason to actually sign an agreement that puts risk on the district. And that's really what it comes down to is allowing them to sewer here. If we even agree to paying the cap fees and losing $1.2 million, we also have to sign an agreement that puts additional risk and liability, because there's no way Escondido is going to take that sewer and assume any risk or liability. There's no incentive for them to do so. So the only way they're going to take the sewer is if they have no risk, no liability. So somebody's going to take the risk and liability. There are customers. So Escondido's point is, they're your customers. You take the risk. Additional costs, you take the risk. If there's a spill and we respond, you get it. You have to pay it, and then you have to figure out how to collect it. So one of the things we don't want to do is put the board, a future board, it may be decades from now, and we may all not be here, in that situation where staff and the board made a decision which put that future board in the crosshairs of future homeowners that now have a higher bill than everybody else, or have some other risk that the district took on their behalf without them knowing. So from a district standpoint, it's not advantageous. The agreement is not a good agreement for us to go into. Even if we could work out a lot of the kinks, there's no way we're getting out of it without assuming some risk and liability. And from the developer standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. However, they don't have the rights to do so unless we say yes. Every other exchange agreement that we've ever entered into, we do not pay the cap fees of the other agencies. So this is unique. So giving up $1.2 million. Now, that being said, there still may be an idea to actually provide some reimbursement that becomes mutually beneficial for us as a district in the future, and provide some payback to ease the burden on the development. And that's kind of where we sit.
Yeah, and if we were to do something like that, it would have to cap the district's exposure, right? We wouldn't want to go into it and have all these unforeseen site conditions. It could be this ever-growing responsibility on the part of the district. So if we were to entertain something like that, we would probably go into it with a perspective of, we'd share whatever percentage of cost to upsize it and not to exceed a certain amount of dollars. So it leaves a wide range of things. I mean, the one bookend is to have them construct the line and construct all 850 feet on their own. The other bookend is probably sewering over to Escondido, and there's different options in between there.
Question?
Go ahead.
If they were to sewer to Escondido, I'm a little confused. They want an agreement that future charges the district would be paid for. I'm a little confused about what future charge. If it was all within our district, they pay the cap fees. If things go up, they're already paid. What future charges would the city of Escondido want to place?
Well, it's our monthly charges, the monthly sewer service charges. So what they're saying is, right now their rate is cheaper than ours.
Yeah.
So if the future residents remain Vallecitos customers, then we bring in a certain amount of dollars that's enough to pay Escondido for their charges. But in the future, if those lines cross and Escondido starts charging more than our rate, Escondido doesn't want to be limited to what our rate is. They want to be paid whatever their rate is. And so that's the exposure that James is explaining, that it may happen 5 years in the future, it may happen 20, it may never happen, but it puts us at risk that the district would have to make up the difference between the fees we're collecting and the fees that we'd be paying to Escondido.
Is there any way to, I guess would have to annex the property into Escondido so that the liability would be placed on the development If,
Yeah, so the annexation question has been asked and answered several times. They're unwilling to annex. All their entitlements are done. The city of San Marcos is unwilling to de-annex them. Escondido is welcome to annex them, but if the city won't de-annex them, then it won't happen. So that is a dead end. We brought it up several times, but that is a dead end from the development standpoint. So
not annex the property, but just the district, the sewer district. Could they annex just the sewer district?
Escondido's a corporated city. It's different than that. They have their different rules. So, but they can't even Escondido cannot annex their sewer services into the city of San Marcos without getting sued, without basically getting sued by San Marcos, is what I would imagine would happen.
Okay. Does it make any sense? Did I understand you to say on the plat map, James, go back to the plat map.
Of course.
The property that's in the city of Escondido, I'm familiar with the corner property. That's Bell Milling, or used to be Bell Milling, a little further to the right.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, and I don't know if it takes in the first two parcels. If the first two parcels are Bell Milling.
I'm not too sure. Here, let me look at the.
Yeah, take a look at the. Yeah, I think the first two are Bell Milling.
Maybe these two.
That little building, I built that little building in 1976. So I had no sewer to it, but I know that building. So the first two properties are Bell Milling in Escondido, and there's no sewer there at all. And
I don't know this for a fact, but the development consultant was telling us that they actually got sewer. I don't know if they've pumped it up to that little pump station that's over in this area somewhere.
Oh, so those two properties somehow pump sewer to the intersection there.
We don't know for a fact. But there's a sewer line that's about right here that they get into in Escondido. These properties do not have any sewer right now. These properties do not have any sewer, and these three parcels have sewer to Vallecitos that go to this intersection, which is the manhole that crosses the freeway.
All of the parcels to the right of the black line right there are Escondido?
Yes.
Is there any benefit for sewer line to be extended so that those parcels could be sewered, and I guess that'd be our sewer to improve the development of that property?
Well, it could, right? But there's no mechanism for us to condition them to sewer pass into the other jurisdiction, because we don't have any jurisdiction in Escondido here at this moment. So if these parcels were to develop anyway, it'd be a very short sewer line, maybe to here. And they would be conditioned to do so at that time. It's just the problem is if they would have to up it to a 10-inch, then you'd be ripping out the 8-inch. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a great number of questions as to, because Cartmart, you're familiar with Cartmart here in town. They looked at that property to build their latest facility some half a dozen years ago or more, maybe. A big 20,000-foot facility. It was a big facility. And they gave it up because the owner was too old to take the risk. But I mean, someday there will be a commercial property there.
Yeah, that's our feeling too. There's going to be commercial development.
Yeah, and with no sewer in the area, somebody's going to have to put a line to get sewer. But it seems unreasonable to me to have this developer put in that line that may be too small for the future, and then of course he has to put in his own line to get to his property.
Well, one thing I want to clarify is the line from here to here, the 860 foot is
Yeah.
sized appropriately for his development, which is
Right.
it's just an 8-inch line. We don't really know because if these develop and light industrial is all over the place. When I looked at our records, you can have light industrial that uses. I mean, look at Lost Abbey Port, for example, 1 EDU of
Yeah.
sewer. Okay, you can have light industrial that's a warehouse that's similar to that, or you can have light industrial that uses, a brewery is another great example, right? They're 30, 40, 50 EDUs just at one little building. So you never know with light industrial. It's really, it would be putting in a pipe to hedge future development bets, but there's no guarantee of it. It'd be a smart thing to do for the cost, and to allow orderly development of that area with that flexibility. But from a statute, from our policies, it'd be something that it would have to go to the board, and the board would have to say, yes, we want to give this a variance or whatever. I don't know if variance is
Yeah.
really the proper word, but it'd have to be some type of action.
And if we did want to get it to a 10-inch sewer to allow for greater development on the Barham properties, I'm calling it, we only can do 10 inches because it has to go underneath the freeway. If we want it larger, then we really got some problems with under the freeway and down the road.
No, you have to do a parallel line, most likely. As Caltrans doesn't allow you to do a pipe burst or anything like that because they don't want any type of soil displacement. But that being said, a 10-inch holds significantly much more than an 8-inch, and I cannot even if you had industrial users and it became a brewery hub, I can't imagine that they'd need more than a 10-inch. I mean, I could be wrong, but I would bet against it.
Well, would we consider having the line expanded to 10-inch and then use their capacity fees to help pay for that?
Yes, it would be, we would probably condition them to extend the line if this were to happen. Remember, this is in Escondido, so
Right.
Escondido has to say, no, we think going here makes more sense. It'd be a conversation. In briefly with Escondido, they think that would probably make the most sense. But if this happens in 20 years, you might have different people there, or even 10 years, you might have different people there. And then these guys would obviously have to connect up. I imagine, I haven't verified, they're on offsites now. And then we'd use the cap fees for that, especially anything that's outside here to use towards upgrading that pipeline. So in the future, or putting a parallel 8 or something to that effect, depending on however it turns out. And there's a good chance also, Director Hernandez, that if these even develop, they develop light industrial in their warehouses, and this pipeline doesn't need to be upgraded, and they really are just extending the pipeline to meet their needs. That's really what I think will happen. And then there's no need to upgrade this pipe. Just if we put in this 8 and they had to upgrade it to a 10, it'd be nearly impossible for them to do, especially with just this size development. But either way, don't get me wrong. Either way, this is basically not directly helping the developer, but trying to find a win-win situation where we can accommodate orderly growth in the area without destroying the road multiple times and making a project almost impossible to build in the future.
Yeah, and it serves to secure the cap fees, right? Because if the left to their own devices, the cost of the cap fees, particularly if they have to pay both ours and Escondido's, it could kill the project. So we'd end up with a piece of property where we got 0 cap fees, as opposed to facilitating the orderly development with some cost sharing and securing the cap fees that would come in at a cost. I mean, and James, I don't know if you're prepared to throw out a number, and we haven't done enough work to say, what would that cost share be? What would the district's percentage of the upsizing be And what does that mean in terms of dollars? So if we entered into some kind of a not to exceed dollar amount, the board would need to know that, hey, we bring in $2 million, but it may cost you $200,000. I'll just, don't take that number away thinking it's the right number, but that's the order of magnitude we're talking about.
So I could talk a little bit about numbers. So what I did was, let me go back to this map and zoom out just a little. So as the board's aware, our current policy is basically when a development comes in, we make the development build a pipeline across their frontage, especially if there's other developments that can connect up to it. And I think the committee's aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So back when in the 1964 or 67, whenever the mobile community came in, we didn't have that policy in place. So looking at this map, they have an internal system, comes out here, it connects up down. Nowadays, we would have made them build a frontage. Now, I worked with Mike Arthur to say, hey, if back in 1960, I forgot the exact year, but let's call it 1964 for argument's sake, if we made them build a frontage all the way, this is actually the driveway, and then we held that money and then we basically got our investment returns, what would that be? So he gave me kind of a bookend. He said on the low end, that's going to be about 138,000. On the high end, it's going to be about 252,000, 254,000. So he gave me a bookend on that. Not that that's the number that we're picking, but I wanted to get a sense of if we had that policy in place, if we conditioned that development when it developed back in the 1960s, but we didn't build the pipe and we just put that in the bank, how much money will we have to, contribute that was earmarked for that exact pipeline? And the range is between 138 and 252 or 4. It's right around there. And it's all depending on the rate of return. 1.5% was a low end of the return, and a little bit below 3 was a high end return. The returns fluctuated over time, but that's kind of where we sat. So obviously in the 70s, the rate of return based on inflationary rates were really high. Nowadays it's really low because of but if you average it out, Mike was pretty comfortable in that range. So that's the only numbers we've gotten. We haven't really, we've talked a little bit with the development about it, but haven't committed to anything, obviously. And staff really can't. It's going to be, at the end of the day, a board decision, hopefully going through committee with some of these ideas.
So the big issue going to Escondido is just, we're going to lose some capacity fee.
About $1.2 million.
And we end up having to pick up the liability if they raise their service charges.
Yeah, and there's more to it than that. The agreement itself, there's a lot to the agreement because there are customers and they're servicing our customers. So Escondido has agreed that, if there's a sewer spill, they may charge us for the sewer spill because they're our customers, even though Escondido is being paid the monthly charge. They obviously want the cap fees, which is the big item. There's also a cost of service issue, right? So from a 218 notice, these people are being charged by Escondido and they don't really have any direct rights to challenge it or fight it. And also from our notice, if Escondido is charging more and we're charging less, that means our existing ratepayers are subsidizing it. So I haven't had a conversation with Jim in a while, our legal, but in the beginning of this conversation, which happened over a year ago, maybe going on 2 years now, with this development, Jim kind of said, "Hey, it's the opposite of taxation without representation," or something to that effect. We're in essence, if Escondido bills these people directly, these people are being taxed, but they're not represented. They can't fight it. They can't do anything. It's an issue that is basically dead in the water. So there's a problem where you're putting these future homeowners in a. I mean, he jokingly said an unconstitutional position, but I don't know what the correct position is, and I won't pretend to quote him exactly from over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So So even if let's say the board and committee goes along with it, there's still some real issues from a legal standpoint of them sewer desking. Now, if it was an exchange, all those issues disappear. And this is where I got clarification, for example, our agreements with Carlsbad and Buena, because basically we go into the Buena system, it goes to Encina, and then every gallon that we put into that Buena system that's ours just gets off, gets taken off the Buena's bill and put onto our bill. So it's a pure exchange, and that's very clean. There's no exchange of cap fees. We collected our cap fees. Buena did not collect the cap fees. There's no 218 issue. If there's a sewer spill or a notice, we respond to it, and if there's any reimbursement, we seek out that reimbursement. So, so it's a very apples to oranges compared to this typical. We do exchange all over the place, obviously with our other sewering agencies, with Encina, our partners. And then, of course, on water, it's even easier because of CWA.
Yeah, as you can see, this is a really difficult property. I mean, you have multiple land use agencies. You have San Marcos, Escondido, and the county. You have different utility agencies involved in here. We got this timing of the mobile home park that didn't extend like they normally would. You have this future development issue and capacity limitations, the proximity of Escondido sewer. It's, as you know, Director Hernandez, there's the only thing left are the difficult and the impossible projects, and difficult's about ready to leave town.
Yeah,
They're really hard to manage.
I've been driving by those properties for 30 years, and I always wondered why they never developed, and now I know why.
Yeah. That's actually the developer said almost the same exact thing. He's like, there's a reason why this property's never developed. It's because it's complicated.
Yeah, so we're going to get more and more issues like this, and I don't want to get to the point where we just kill a lot of projects because of inflexibility. I want to try to find creative solutions that work for all the parties involved. And I think this issue of trying to work with them on upsizing is a way to do that, and I think it really does provide benefits. Now, clearly, if those properties in Escondido do develop in the future, there's no guarantee that they would come into our pipeline through some kind of exchange agreement, but it's likely that they would. If the facility exists, it's a lot easier to connect to. They're not going to try to reinvent their whole system for a couple of parcels.
So James, you said this 860 feet at 8 inches did you say about $500,000?
Yeah, they have it roughly a little, like, I forgot, it's like 560,000 or something to that effect.
So what's the incremental cost to go into 10-inch?
Oh, the incremental cost is not, I haven't done that number, but it won't be as high. I haven't done the number. I could look at our bonding rate incremental cost and kind of upscale from there, but I haven't done it. But it's not half. So,
right. No, it's fairly small, I would think.
Yeah, it's not half. It's smaller. Yes.
I just think with all the complexity of going to Escondido that we just keep them in our system, and they have to sewer into our system. I think upsizing is a good idea to accommodate orderly growth of those Escondido properties.
Yeah.
Could we allow their capacity fees to pay for this 800-foot line at the 10-inch, the whole amount for the 10-inch?
Well, the board has the ability to do that through a variance, but our policy doesn't support it. So it'd have to be a board direct action. And Glenn, interrupt me if I'm saying anything that's incorrect. But so right now, if they just put in an 8-inch line, they need to serve their development. So it fits policy. It's very straightforward. Adding a 10-inch line and looking at other ways to reimburse them fairly without getting too far off policy is possible. That we could make a contribution, especially because, the 10-inch line, you need bigger manholes. The manholes are going to probably be almost as much as the upsize of the pipeline because you're going from a smaller to a bigger manhole. But that being said, it's still not going to pay for their pipe. They're still going to pay a big portion of their pipeline. Using the other logic of this pipeline extension, that gives you kind of a bracket of minimum and maximum if that pipeline was there. But even with that, that's something that Vallecitos does not have to do. It's something that we could do to help facilitate this and make this kind of an orderly planning area. for our future customers. But again, these are kind of those options that we talked about. But yeah, in general, we would actually use that money towards upgrading that pipe, but per policy, we don't have to.
Yeah, Director Hernandez, there would be no ratepayer money involved in this in any way. So it would be, if the district decided to go in this direction, our recommendation would be that any district share would come out of a portion of the cap fee revenue that would be coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's for future development.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, there's no, none, I guess that's a good point. None of this conversation is involving ratepayer money because
I didn't think that it would. It's just,
I just wanted to clarify it for the record, because that's a sensitive subject with the district. So we want to
oh
make sure
yeah,
that
yeah,
everybody's
yeah.
aware that this is rate, or not ratepayer, this is developer money that's going
Yep.
towards a developer capacity project.
Is there any document or account that the developer could put money into to ensure that if the service rate did go up, that they could take it out of that account, or if there was a sewer spill, they could take it out of that account?
The developer is not, I mean, they're interested in selling the project and leaving, and they're willing to put up a bond, but whenever we try to pull bonds, it's like pulling teeth. We get 25 to 50 cents out of the dollar from the surety a lot of times. So it's no guarantee, but basically they're willing to put anything you want in the CC&Rs. But at the end of the day, if you could imagine, you'd have homeowners coming to the board about these conditions if they're stuck with a huge bill of some kind or some big repair bill. So we've, as district policy and our normal practice, has always shied away from putting our future board members in that position with future homeowners, where basically it's an advantage for the developer, and it really ends up putting all that burden on the future homeowners.
And we could get creative and try to create some special zone just for this one group, and their cost of service for that zone just happens to be the cost that Escondido would charge if we did that. But there's a lot of administrative costs with that, and it gets more difficult.
Yeah, you'd have to basically identify a whole different use area and go through that whole process, a different rate area. You also have to remember the second or one of the underlying difficulties is we don't bill these customers. We collect their fees on the tax roll. So we don't have that monthly communication. It's because it's an IDA for sewer only customers.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. You can have an IDA, another improvement district B or C or D. You can create something special just for them, but we don't normally do that for a group of 190 residents.
Yep. And then the question still becomes: do we give up $1.2 million in cap fees, or does because Escondido is pretty adamant they're not going to sewer them unless they get the cap fees. Our argument with Escondido is it's not in your cap fee model. You're not improving anything on their behalf, but it doesn't matter. They have the right to collect cap fees, and that is their right.
Yeah, to me, it's a little disappointing, the inability or unwillingness of Escondido to work with us on these areas.
Yeah.
Well, they're willing to service them. It's they don't want to give up the $1.2 million in cap fees.
It's the conditions that to me aren't reasonable.
Well, if it's okay with the committee, what we'll do is try to get a better idea of the cost. So if we were to explore this alternative where we maybe look at helping to pay for the upsizing, we can maybe sharpen our pencils and get a better idea. But from a timing perspective, I'm not sure when the developer is going to want, they're going to want an answer sooner or later because they need to move forward or not.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. James, is there anything else you needed?
No, I mean, part of me was hoping for James, go in this direction, tell the developer this, because it makes my life easy. But we'll go ahead and sharpen our pencil, and we'll probably be bringing this back to you next month, because I think the developer wants an answer last month. So
Yeah, I think you can tell them what we're leaning with, and that's that we're going to sewer, and that we're interested in maybe some kind of upsizing scenario. So
yeah, I think it becomes a cost, because I know that the developer's consultant is very reasonable, but I believe the developer wants us to pay for the whole thing, and I've already said a hard no to that. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no justification for it.
you can
So-
tell them that again. That'd be fine.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll work on some numbers with Glenn, and depending on the timing, we may be, I don't know. We'll see it. You'll see it at the next committee, if not before. So,
Before you go, James, would you also look at what a bond amount would be that would, if you only got 25%, and you have to go after a bond, what kind of
Yeah.
number of bond you would look for and say, okay, give us a $10 million bond, and then we'll know what we're doing.
yeah, I will, but you can't hold bonds to perpetuity is one of the problems, right? So, you could hold surety, like notes and papers and, real cash, so to speak, to perpetuity, or you could put something in escrow, but you can't even keep something in escrow to perpetuity. It has to have a sunset date.
Uh-huh.
So the problem is the sunset date. So you could have a $100 million bond. That bond's going to have a sunset date, because nobody's going to give you a bond for, let's just call it $1 million, that goes off forever.
Yeah. Okay.
So it becomes a kind of a non-issue with that. Because we did explore that, Director Hernandez.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Go ahead.
There's one more item left.
Yes, one more item left. So the urban water management plan, and since I'm sharing, I think I will continue just to share. So hopefully the committee is aware. If not, our urban water management plan, the final draft is online. We've advertised in the newspaper. We're gearing towards the public hearing, which will be in the first board meeting in June, which I believe is June 2nd. So that's going to be a busy board meeting, because we're going to have hopefully a budget adoption in the first board meeting in June. And we will have the public hearing for the urban water management plan. Now, the good news is the 2020 urban management plan is significantly different than 2015. It's different because of statute and state regulations and rules, but also because our water supply outlook is significantly different. The new components to it also is really, and excuse me, I'll kind of jump back and forth, this is what it looks like. So everybody can see. Let me zoom up a little bit. Hopefully give you a bigger picture. And then on our table of contents, it's basically the same type of table of contents as every other urban water management plan, with the water system being chapter 4, our SB7, or basically our gallons per capita per day targets being chapter 5. And as you may remember from the 2010 and 2015, almost all agencies, at least locally, have no issues with the SB77 goal, which was initially put in by Governor Schwarzenegger, just to kind of date it back. System supplies are in 6. Now, for us, our system supplies is essentially water authority. So this is basically lifted from the water authority's draft urban water management plan, geared towards us for our numbers, and place in. So we really have no additional say in it, because even our desal is a water authority supply, and even our water from Livenhain is an indirect water authority supply, because we get the raw water from water authority. We pay for treatment services at OMWD, if that makes sense. So chapter 7 is really, as chapter 8 is our water contingency plan. So this is the part that's really new, but really it has to do with and I'll explain kind of where it affects us. But this is the part that's been kind of highlighted. So each kind of urban water management plan update has something that they're really pushing forward. And our water shortage contingency plan is it. Now, the good news for our county is we don't have any. We don't have none. So it becomes a non-chapter. And when I go into some of the tables in chapter 7, which is our supply and demand, I'll go with that. But what it does do and this is something we'll have to bring back through the general manager to probably our PAP or P3 committee and to the board, is we do have to probably make some amendments to our drought ordinance, because we have a 4-stage drought ordinance, and the new water contingency plan and the new state regulation requires a 6-stage drought ordinance. So we have to go from 4 to 6. It doesn't give you guidelines of what you have to do. It's just different triggers. So in other words, trigger 4 and trigger 5, there may be nothing different that Vallecitos does, but you have to identify them because it'll match the state triggers if we go into a severe drought. Anyway, not to take up too much of your time, just go into chapter 7, water supply reliability. I'm going to go to right to a couple tables and just explain them and kind of explain the differences. Okay, 7.4, projected normal year, water supply totals, 2025-30, you can see the different years, water supply demands. Now, I'm going to put in a note down here. There's going to be 2 notes, maybe 3 notes. I just got off the phone before our meeting started with HDR consultant. So the water supply totals are given by Water Authority, and they include anticipated conservation measures, both active and passive. The water demand totals, which is provided through Vallecitos through our master planning and our own urban water management plan, do not include passive or active conservation measures. I'm going to put that note, clarify this note, put into 2 different notes right here. So this way people understand it. This is the table that people complained about last time because it showed a 35% reduction. Here, it's more like 10, 12, 13%. So it's not 35%. So the numbers are much different. The third note that I'm putting down is the water supply totals are the projected totals. It's not actually what the Water Authority has for water supplies, because they have supplies above and beyond that. They're just saying this is what we anticipate based on conservation goals that we want to hit as a region. So that gives us, on purpose, that gives us our conservation goals based on a non-conservation number to hit for our future planning, which dovetails into chapter 8 and chapter 9, which is all the best management practices stuff. Okay, so a couple notes to clear that up, but just to kind of reinforce that, the next tables, single year, you see, and some people get confused when they hear a single year. I think the average public thinks, oh, we're cutting back in water. But a single dry year, people use more water historically because they're watering their plants more. They're using more water. So the water supply went up. Look, supply went up and the demand went up. The difference is always going to be 0 unless we outstrip supplies, if that makes sense. So if you look at this number, it's 7,296. If you look at a normal year number, our demand is 6.8 and their anticipation is 6.17. So you can see that we go up significantly, almost 1,000. These are million gallons, almost 1,000 million gallons. They still have supply for us. So the supply is there. This number is not an indication of the actual supply. This is an indication of what they anticipate supplying us, if that makes sense. When we
Hey,
get into
James.
multiple dryers,
James,
yes.
I got a quick question on the table above this one. No, let's see, go back down.
This is the multiple dryers.
All right, what's the table above?
That's a single dryer, and the table above says normal year.
Okay, I guess the normal year. Yeah, that one right there. So why wouldn't you just show conservation as being the 648? Why is there a small? I mean, what are the active and passive conservation numbers based on? And why are they different?
So yeah, they're just normal conservation that every agency does. So in other
So
words,
is that just a straight percentage on the supply total?
no, I don't know exactly. I have to look into it. CWA goes through a couple different scenarios to come up with it based on, and they're basically looking at historical conservation numbers that each agency reports through its reporting structure and projecting it forward. So this is the table that you may remember that people complained about. And
Oh, yeah.
when it went to the state, Vallecitos did it right, and many other agencies had to show the deficit, because the intent of this table is to give the agency and the people reading this that, hey, you're going to have to do some sort of drought, passive and active water conservation. And here's the number, here's a goal of what you're supposed to try to hit. And so the state came back to the agencies that showed this as a 0 because water supply was available, or what they did is they projected their existing or projected conservation numbers in this number to make this number lower, to make it 0. The state says you're doing it wrong, because now you looking at this document don't have an understanding of what amount, what percentage, or what amount of conservation you need to do. So that's why I'm going to take care of it with notes.
Yeah, it just looks a little funny having surplus numbers in such small quantities, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's really telling when you look at this, the multiple year, is as you can see, our demand keeps on going up, but the supply matches it perfectly. Basically, CWA has different levers. They're not even, if you look at their urban water management plan that's online right now, they're not even going to their highest lever. They're not even triggering like a lot of their emergency statutes. They're so well prepared, according to their study, that even in the 5th year of a drought, that they have abundant supply to meet increased demands without even going to the next level of different levers, getting water out of groundwater basins and different emergency levers that they could actually pick. So that's why the number is 0, because they're basically saying, oh, that's what you need, we can match it. So the number will always be 0 the way the tables are set up. So in other words, their number might be 9,000 for us, but they're just going to say, we can match what you have.
Yeah.
So that's really the majority of what I wanted to talk about here, is to show you that the numbers are starkly different. This number up here showed like a 35% difference. The new numbers now, because what's happened is your averages get to move with time. And now we have some of the reality of the recession and the reality of the past droughts within our 10-year average number. And it shows. Because remember, you have to make things in 10 years. If you go through the document, it'll talk about the increments. It'll talk about how the averages go through. And it becomes clear that your numbers are based on these rolling averages, and you get to roll the average forward, you get to roll the average back depending on what you're doing. But at the end of the day, the message and the notes will show that there's an abundant supply. There's no water shortage anticipated by CWA, and even if we don't hit our conservation goals, then the water supply is there. Not hitting our conservation goals may have other effects from a state standpoint, the carrot or the stick type thing. But from a water supply standpoint, we have no issue. That's all I had for this. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. The document is online. There will be a presentation at the public hearing done by primarily HDR, our consultant, to go over the document in more detail. I wanted to give the committee just a flavor for where we are, which is basically the 2 main things I want as a takeaway to committee is water supplies, according to CWA, are there, and the water supplies are considered reliable based on the statutes, and we don't have anything to worry about as far as our existing customer base or planning, prudent planning and organized planning for future development. And the second thing is, we will have to have some action. We will have to come back mainly for a new drought ordinance, because our existing drought ordinance doesn't meet the new statutes.
Yeah, excuse me, at the meeting on the 19th during the GM report, I'll announce that there's going to be a public hearing, so we'll give notice on that. And, regarding the conservation thing, even though we may have been in the right last cycle, it's always uncomfortable when you're standing by yourself in a field, right?
Yep.
So I'm hopeful that more agencies are going to be in line with the way we're presenting the information, so that there's not that uncertainty that everybody points to the pack and thinks that's where you should be. So.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the notes take care of it, and the state is kind of wrangling in, and the fact that the numbers aren't drastic. 35% was a drastic number last time. This time it's not. It's 10, 11, 12% or whatever it ended up being. It's not a drastic number.
Could you, James, could you scroll up on the table of contents a little bit?
Sure. What chapter do you want to see?
Oh, I wanted to see where they list the CWA supplies. You know, they have QSA, they have canal lining, a couple other things.
Yeah. So if you look at here's chapter 6, system supplies.
Yeah, I think it was in here.
Yep. And then it
No.
goes to there.
Yeah, I don't see, is it just, yeah, I don't know just from the table of contents, but do they describe CWA's regular Met supplies in addition to QSA and canal lining?
It does, and there is, and this really, I'll go to the chapter. So this is really lifted from CWA's document, and it's their document.
Right.
There's been some criticism and some comments on this document. Vallecitos, I put some comments in this document. CWA has addressed some of them, but not all of them.
Okay.
But it does go through a description of supplies. It does talk about the canal, the new canal as a future, but it doesn't increase the supply. So I think a lot of the argument in the urban water management plan is, hey, it's the same supply. It's just a different road that it's getting to the same place. But it does talk about in the CWA document, it goes into more detail on the agreement and securing and how much water is anticipated. But it's an assumption, to say the least. But from a statute, all the CWA supplies, all their normal supplies are considered from a state statute highly reliable sources of water with high, what's the term? They have high position as far as water rights go,
Priority.
especially with the IID water.
Yeah, well, it's half of the supply is high priority.
Yep. So you can see this is from the IID, the canal lining, and it goes into water. And as you go down further and further, the supplies become more and more, not necessarily expensive, but more obscure, so to speak, like the groundwater banking and some of the other high intensity supplies from a cost standpoint. But yeah, this document is online. But if you really want to get into the water authorities one, their water authorities is much more detailed about their supplies. So what we do in ours is we take the general description of each one and we put it in for our supplies because we don't have any other supplies. But the water authority drills down more into theirs.
What about the Hernandez groundwater supply?
We talked about groundwater supply in this document. So we did mention groundwater. It's towards the end of this chapter. So, and we looked at the different studies, and we looked at the existing study, and we talked about it as a potential source of 250 acre feet a year.
Okay,
So it's not, Jim, it's there.
all right.
So it's not a high priority supply that we're counting on to meet our water demands, but it's there in case, and it's identified in case we ever do move forward.
And
It's in our back, it's in our
and-
back pocket.
Encina has it as a place to put the reclaimed water.
And the Encina and the North County Recycle Water Coalition supplies are also in this document. It's given its fair amount of talk. But again, from our anticipated supplies and even our future direct potable reuse is in this document. But again, it's their lower priority. We're not counting on any of that water to meet our demand. So in other words,
Yeah, they're not verifiable supplies.
they're planning. Yeah, exactly. And they're not required for us to meet our future demands, which is the good news.
Well, I'm sending Hal Martin a note to eat his words.
Send them a copy of this document and say, here it is. So, unless there's any other questions, that's pretty much it for me.
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
I have one item. not on the agenda, but just to put out there. Glenn, we need to find another committee member for our ad hoc committee.
I think we already decided that. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sanella, but I'll double check on the assignment.
Okay, yeah, let us know, because we should probably meet here sometime.
Yeah, I've been talking with Rick, so we'll set something up probably later this month. Once we
Okay.
get past the board meeting on the 19th.
All right, great.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right, is there, so there's no other business? And I assume there's no public comment?
Nope.
Okay. I
Okay.
think we're all
Goodbye.
Thank you
done.
very much.
Everybody,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you.